How very interesting. I just realized that I left one of my props in another box. So we're going to make it up as we go. That's what we do best. Yeah! Well, you know, you're never really going to know what happens in the next minute, no matter how you plan it.
That's right.
So it's not what happens to us in life, it's how we react to what happens to us in life that really is important. And so I guess that's a great way it has nothing to do with the prosperity game, or maybe it has everything to do with the prosperity game, but it's how you ground yourself. Because when you're grounded in spirit and you're grounded in your source, you are absolutely connected to the most powerful thing in your life, the most powerful thing in the universe, and that source. Everything else is an affect. Everything else is something that you create. And you see it differently than anybody else sees it. You see prosperity and abundance different than anybody else sees it. It's all up to us. It's all a mind game. You know, the Matrix, was it the Matrix? Matrix 1, 2, and 3, where they used to plug people in the back of their heads. Yeah. And the machines really controlled everything. Well, in fact, it's the source, right? And we plug into it. And we plug into it through our mind. And what we see and what we create is what absolutely becomes a reality. Just as in, I think his name was Nemo. That says, or maybe he was the fish. Anyway, what I'm getting to it is our thoughts is what really makes it happen. And so we've been using this month, Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks. And this is a book that kind of calls it like it is. Now, I'm not suggesting that you believe it or not believe, and whether they channel or don't channel. To me, that's not important. What is important is the message. The message is when you connect and know your source, you can absolutely create the life you want. No matter how you do that, whatever vehicle you use, whatever path you use, whatever awareness you use, that is the path for you. If it's giving you what you want, that is your path. If it's not giving you what you want, then I invite you to examine it again and look at why not. What in your thoughts is creating what is showing up in your life? If you want to see what's showing in your life, look at your thoughts. And today what we're going to really be talking about is what happens is we focus on the limitation of what we don't have rather than what we want. And that was brought home, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'll start it off. It's even given in such a thing as some of you might know, I was out with a little bit of laryngitis, a little bit of chest congestion last week. And it took a while to get over it, and in the middle of it, I was rereading what I was preparing for my talk for this week, and it says, if you want to be well because you don't want to be sick, where the attention is on being sick. It's not being unwell. The universe doesn't sort out don'ts and negatives. They don't exist. So when you focus on, I don't like being sick, that's what I got more of. And oh, did I get it. I love the way the universe shows up. It always gives me plenty of ammunition for my talks. I don't know that my body's going to last to be 100, but so far it's been fun. It's fun even in the abundance part, because when I talk about the prosperity, what I get is prosperity shows up in my life. Because the more I focus on it for preparing for a talk, the more I connect to my source, the more I get rid of the garbage in my thinking that prevents it, and the more prosperity I have and shows up. I love it that way. I love being this vehicle. So this month, Patti Paris, who was a classmate of mine in ministerial school, wrote the daily guides. And for those who've been reading it, she's the minister at Vision in San Diego. And I like what she has because I don't know if everybody else reads it the same way, but whatever I'm talking about, that's what she writes about this week. So I try not to read ahead because I don't want to spoil it. I want to give her a chance to manifest it. But on May 11th, she wrote, Our Powerful Thoughts. And she quotes Norman Vincent Peale, and some of us remember Norman Vincent Peale was a great positive motivator and on television and radio for years. And he said, sounds like Ernest Holmes, change your thoughts and you change your world. Ernest Holmes used to say, change your thinking, change your life. It's the same message. And then what he says is, Ernest Holmes says, we must get the perfect vision, the perfect conception. We must enlarge our thought until it realizes all good, and then we must swing right out and use this almighty power for definite purposes. And yesterday I was watching a recap of a golf tournament. I don't know many of you if you know Rory McIlroy, but he's a 23-year-old from Scotland who is just burning up the courses around, and he's #1 golfer and has replaced Tiger Woods. Not replaced him, but surpassed him in many of his things. And in the interview, he shot, I guess, 11 under par yesterday on this course, and he was like 3 or 4 strokes ahead of everybody else. And they interviewed him afterwards, and they said, "What, you just seemed like you were really hot today. What was going on?" He said, "I was in the flow. I visualized every shot. I saw it made before I made it, and then I got in the zone, and I went in the flow, and I let go, and it went in." He had 7 putts in a row that were all beyond 7 or 8 feet that all went in like this. All from visualization. Why am I telling you that story? I'm telling you that story because that is an example of how it works. When Ernest Holmes says, get the perfect vision, there is no perfect vision other than the vision that you want to hold. The vision that you want to create for your life. But you have to take it in. You have to embody it. You have to know it. You have to be in the flow. You have to know that this is for your highest good, and this is what you want to bring into your life. And when you do that, you embody it, and then you let go, and you let God and Source deliver it for you. And we're going to talk about that today, about the 3 steps. So in here it says, everything begins with thought, she says. Everything begins in consciousness. And that's what we believe. That's what we believe in Science of Mind. That's all in consciousness. As above, so below, we are told, and as within, so without. Meaning everything begins and proceeds from the invisible realm to the visible. And it's not so great when our thoughts and emotions are consistently going back to the ideas of lack, loneliness, struggle, or fear. But that's what happens to us. All we have to do is run into a little rock in our path. And some of us have boulders in our path. We run into a rock, and what happens is you revert to your old thinking. You revert to the old thinking that says, for whatever reason, you don't have it, or always happens to me this way, or da-da-da-da-da. I have the opposite thing going on with me about parking. I have believed for years that parking would always show up. My former wife used to call it my parking god. I don't care what you call it. I expect it, so I get it. I get the perfect parking space. Yesterday I was attending a class for seniors from ARP. And I'm hoping to get a discount on my insurance now. I have this little certificate, so I went and spent about 6.5 hours at Mercy Hospital and listening to all the things. I learned a new thing. I will pass it on to you. For years, I was taught the perfect was 10-2 on the steering wheel. That is not healthy for airbags. The best position is 8-4. Then on the way home, I realized my steering wheel, which I've been driving my car now for 6 years, has 2 thumbprints for my thumbs that force me to 8-4. Who would have guessed? I didn't know that. I've been driving up here all this time. But what happens, there's some reason for this. When the airbag deploys, if you have here, it can come up and hit you right in the head. When you have it down here, what happens when the airbag is your hands fall away. And I thought, wow, isn't that wonderful? Well, the reason, the real reason for the story, though, is I got there, and I had like 10 minutes to get to class. And I pulled in the parking, and I said, well, you know, I bet I'm going to find a parking space. And I looked up, and they looked like they were filled, but I said, you know, I don't know that there isn't another parking space up there. As I'm driving up, I see the lights go on in a car in front of me. So I stop, the car pulls out, and I pull in. I'm on the first level, and the first 10 cars from the front exit. It's because I actually expect to see it. The same is with your health. The same is with prosperity. The same thing is with relationships. If you expect it, you will get it. And what it is sometimes is it's training ourselves to let go of the negativity. And it takes training. It really does. You know, I don't pretend that life is hard because I don't think it is. I really gave up thinking lessons should be hard. I think my lessons in life should be joyful. I came here to have a good time. I did not come here to have suffering. I think the Buddha meant suffering was letting go of your attachments to the way things are. That was the letting go of the suffering. So then why not have joy? Why not have peace? Why not have ease? It's all in our mindsets what we really want. So in here it says, the practice is like paper training a puppy. We don't have a bad puppy. Whoever had a bad puppy? Except when they're chewing their favorite pair of shoes over
Oh,
I have a side story. I had a golden retriever puppy. And I thought it was cute at first. I was giving him my old slippers to chew on. Duh. A puppy cannot tell the difference between an old pair of slippers and a brand new pair of loafers. So I retrained myself, then I retrained the puppy. And that's what we have to do. We have to retrain our thoughts. We don't have bad thoughts. We're not a bad person. We just have a little corrective attitude adjustment. We have to, and I don't mean head for the bar, attitude adjustment. Change your attitude. Change how you're thinking. Because we're not a bad puppy. So when the puppy wanders off, we gently and lovingly return him to the paper. So when our mind, i.e. the puppy, wanders off from the good, return the puppy to the paper. So you have this one life on this earth, regardless of whether you believe in reincarnation or whatever, it doesn't matter. Right now you're here in this life, in this present moment. So why not make the most of it? Why not create the life that you really want? Whether that's good health, that's prosperity, whether it's abundance, whether it's loving relationship, whatever it is, why not create that? And what it sometimes does is it takes training. The training you have to do is catch yourself. It's becoming aware of when you're not thinking positive, but what you're doing is creating limitations. You create limitations in your mind. You have old stories. We all have old stories. There's nothing wrong with having an old story, but let it go. It doesn't serve you in the present moment. If it doesn't reinforce your good, let it go. Some of us get so attached to it, we identify with our story. I had a friend in Texas who kept greeting everybody, and we all knew that he identified with a bad back. So we'd always greet him with saying, "How's your back?" He became his sore back. That was his identification. Do you think in the whole 5 years I knew him, he ever got rid of his sore back? Of course not. It was who he was. I herniated my back while I was in Texas, and it devastated me. I thought, how am I as a minister going to not be able to stand up? Because I had herniated 2 discs. And I thought, I don't like this, God. This is not me. And what I found out is I didn't want surgery because I didn't know anybody with successful back surgery. I decided I was going to get well. I used drugs, therapy, and science of mind. And within 6 months, I was pain-free. And I basically have been pain-free, standing up, walking, because I refused to identify with a bad back. Now, there are times when my back feels weak, and I do something like say, okay, Jerry, lose 5 pounds, do a little exercise, because you want to keep walking and talking. I like what I do. I don't want to do it sitting on a chair. Yesterday, or the day before, I had a friend of mine on Facebook send me a YouTube, Rev Ike. I don't know if any of you knew Reverend Ike. I never knew who Reverend Ike was before I got this YouTube. Here is this black guy in a pink suit. And he is just all fired up. And he's in Madison Square Garden. And when you open up the YouTube, this Madison Square Garden is full. And I thought, oh my God, we got another Billy Graham up here talking. We didn't. We had a tent revivalist for sure, but he was doing New Thought. He was doing New Thought all the way. And I love what he had to say, and I want to make sure I get it right, because I was captivated by this guy. He just told it like it was. And when he said his message was on, if you believe you are worthy of money and wealth, you will have it. That's what he said. If you doubt, you will not. If you doubt, you will not. He said, let go of the old way of begging prayer. I love it. Let go of the old way of begging prayer. He said, oh God, he was mimicking somebody. He said, oh God, I am not worthy, but help me out with some money to pay my bills. I'm not worthy. He said, if you're not worthy, he says, no way. That is the truth. If the message you're putting out is no way, guess what? No way is what shows up. So you have to change it around. He was on fire and I loved it. And one of my other friends teased me and said, well, if you wear a pink suit, so I wore purple today. If you wore a pink suit, maybe you could fill up Madison Square Garden. And then I saw a couple of his other interviews, and I never saw him in a pink suit again. What I did see him in is in charcoal gray. He looked like the same suits I wear at times, you know. But it's the message, and he had it. What I realized is he did start out as a fundamentalist minister, and it went until he was like 20, and he got swayed by unity. And then he moved to New York, and then he opened up his own church, and I think it's either called Science and Living or Living in Science, something like that. But asking it is given, the law of attraction. What they say in here I think is really important for us to know. And all of this is in this first couple chapters. I love this book. I've used it a lot. I talk from it because I think what it does is it's a real clear message. It's a real clear message that you can change your thinking. You can connect, and they call it a vibration. I don't care what you call it. You could call it magnetic pull. But what I believe, it's like the movie The Secret. It's the same stuff. It's the thoughts you put out there, that is what you draw towards you. It's just like this. It cannot help but be otherwise. And that's why it's important to get clear in your thinking. Get clear in your thinking about what it is that you desire, not on the limitation. So it's what we put our focus on where we get it. And what they say in there is if there's something you desire that you currently do not have, you need only put your attention upon it. And by the law of attraction, it will come to you. For as you think about the thing or experience you desire, you offer a vibration, and then the law, that very thing of experience, comes to you. You get what you think about, whether you like it or not. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. Because the universe doesn't discriminate. It gives you where you place your attention. Now there are some steps in here that you can use. It sets the 3 steps to whatever you want to do. If you have this book, it's on page 47. The 3 steps to whatever you want to be or have. You know, sometimes 3 steps are really tough to realize. This one's pretty easy. Step 1, you ask. Step 1, you ask. That's your work. Step 2, the answer is given. That's not your work. That's the universe. The answer is given. Step 3, the answer which has been given must be received and allowed. You have to let it in. Some of us are not good about receiving. We ask, the universe responds, and we say, no, not now, or later, or I'm not ready for that. Oh, do I really have to? If you ask, and then allow, and let it in. What they say in here, you ask, because of the wonderful and diverse environment in which you are focused, step 1 comes easily and automatically, for this is how your natural preferences are born. And step 2 is a simple step for you, for it's not your work at all. Step 2 is the work of the non-physical, the work of the God force. All things that you ask for, large and small, are immediately understood. When you ask, it is given every time. Now what happens is sometimes what we ask for is in concept, and what shows up is not what we physically think we wanted as the answer, so we decline it. And yet if we would say yes, it is absolutely, that is for the highest good for what we ask for. And sometimes when we ask, we don't see it show up immediately, or it shows up in a disguise, and so we don't accept it, and yet it is the first step of a series of steps that lead you to your good. So what are you willing to do? Are you willing to have more good in your life? Do you want more prosperity? And then step 3 is you allow it in. As the application of the art of allowing. You allow it to be in. And the art of allowing is the art of no longer resisting. No longer resisting the well-being that you deserve, the well-being that is natural, the well-being that is your legacy, your source, your very well-being. If you can desire it, the universe can produce it. If Rory McIlroy can envision sinking a putt, having a 11 under game, and in the flow, you can as well. It's going to take practice. You know, you have to practice sing. Musicians don't just start up and start singing, start playing the first day of their life. They spend years honing their practice and their gifts and their talent. They have a raw talent to begin with. You have a raw talent. You have a raw talent, which is your connection to the source. That is a raw talent you can hone to its own perfection, so you have absolutely all that you really want. So open your floodgates. Let it all in. Carol Burnett said, "I can only change my life. No one can do it for me." You can only change your life. No one else can do it for you. I can't do it for you. I can maybe spark an interest in your thinking, but unless you believe it, unless you do it, it will not happen for you. That's just the way it is. So it is really up to you. Do you want to have the practice? Do you really want to do it? Now the game I have to come down here to see if I do have, oh, I'm so happy. One of my teaching aids. Has anybody ever seen this game before? This is called a prosperity game. These are 3 checks. They're blank checks. And the check says pay to the order of. It's drawn on the divine bank of abundance. One reality lane, here and now, my state, whatever. This game is played, and I brought extra copies if anybody wants them. You can see me afterwards, and I'll give you a copy and you can make more. The game is, many of us in abundance are not used to abundance. We don't know how to handle it. We don't know how to manifest it. And if we have an idea, we might have ideas of limitation. So when it comes our way, we have attitudes about it which stop the floodgates. This game helps you open up the floodgates. Some people play the game where each day you give yourself another $1,000. So if I were playing this game today, I would say I have $1,000 to spend before I go to bed tonight. And you write checks any way you want to spend that $1,000. For when you get up tomorrow morning, you have $2,000 to spend before the day is out. At the end of the month, you have $30,000 to spend in one day. The idea is to get you out of your self-confined box of thinking. When you start playing this game, and I've taken a couple classes where I've played this game a couple different times, it always has a change in my attitude and my prosperity. It has a way to open it up because all of a sudden you realize money is only a method of exchange. If you really know that dollar bill or $5 bill or 20 or 100 in your pocket, there's nothing behind it other than your faith. There's nowhere that you can go and get that and in exchange. And it changes from day to day depending on inflation. It depends on what you're thinking. It depends on what other people are thinking. It's a supply and demand. Just look at what you pay at the gas pump. That changed this week. So far this year, it's gone from in the low $2 and something I paid once to, yes, 2 days ago, I spent $3.75 a gallon. Now, it's interesting what you think, and I thought about this as I was doing it. It was raining in San Diego, but I was watching a report, it was 8 o'clock at night, that the gas prices were expected to go up on Saturday and Sunday because some refinery had to shut down. And they expected prices to go up. So if you were going to fill up your tank, the idea was to do it on Thursday or Friday. So I put my hat on, put my coat on, I ran for the car, and I went and stood underneath the thing and filled up my tank. I only needed like 5 gallons of gas, but I did it because I believed them. Because the prosperity game is only a game. And the dollars behind it is what you believe it to be. And if you move from spot to spot, time to time, demand, supplies and demand, all those prices change. So it's just a medium. And the dollar is not your source. The source is the divine, God. I've told you, many of you before, I budget on a monthly basis for unknown but expected income. And it shows up. It just shows up. It shows up magically. I had something where I just the other day, I was called my insurance company to ask a question. And in the process of, I was talking about this course I was taking. And nothing to do with the course, but I'm talking to the young man, and I said, you know, my insurance went up last year. And he said, yes, you know, they penalize the young and the old. We have more accidents. So I'm assuming he sounded like he was 20. So I'm assuming he wasn't identifying as being old. He said, we have more accidents. And I said, isn't that strange? Because we are the people who can usually least afford the higher rates. But when I was talking to him, he says, oh, by the way, you're going to get an insurance adjustment next month. And it amounts to almost a month premium in my insurance rate. The reason I'm telling you that, it's an attitude. If you expect prosperity to show up in your life, if you're open to receive, if you're willing to have the gifts of the divine show up in your life and you don't put labels on what it has to look like, it shows up. The universe will respond to your thinking. So Carol Burnett says, I can only change my life. No one can do it for me. And Ernest Holmes says, there has come a greater vision into those who believe and act as though this vision were true now. It will prove true in their lives. Thank you.